Hi, I'm Marie Victoria Robertson. I'm here telling you stories as part of the Ottawa Children's Storytelling Festival for 2022. I am telling you stories from the unsurrendered and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, who are the original caretakers and storytellers of this land. And I am here today to tell you some yummy, tasty, bite-sized little stories to fill your tummies. Now, I like to start a big meal with a little bit of soup, but I'm going to need you to help me make some of that soup. So let's get a pot ready and let's do it. One little pea jumped into the pot and waited for the soup to get hot. Pew! Two little peas jumped into the pot and waited for the soup to get hot. Pew! Three little peas jumped into the pot and waited for the soup to get hot. Pew! Four little peas jumped into the pot and waited for the soup to get hot. Pew! Five little peas jumped into the pot and waited for the soup to get hot. Pew! And when the soup began to get hot, all the little peas jumped out of the pot. I hope they didn't, thank you. I hope they didn't splash any of the soup anywhere. Now that was a good little beginner, but now let's get a good meal going. Do you know what I really love to eat? It's potatoes. And this next story, it's about someone who also loved potatoes. Once there was a village with a chef who really, really, really loved potatoes. It was all he ever cooked with. He made everything. He made baked potatoes, mashed potatoes, hashed browns, scalloped potatoes, potato soup, potato salad, French fries, of course. It's all he ever ate. But then one day, something terrible happened. He ran out of potatoes. Oh, and you can imagine his heart was broken. He started crying and crying in his house. Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? No more potatoes. What am I going to cook? What am I going to eat? Oh, this is the worst thing. And he kept going on and pacing in his house and crying and crying. And a villager outside happened to be walking by, and she heard the chef crying. And she got an idea. She ran home and came back a few minutes later with a basket full of beautiful green beans, and she gave it to the chef. Now he was grateful, and this gave an idea to all the other villagers. They did the same thing. They ran home, they went to their gardens, they went to their pantries, and they came back with armfuls and baskets and boxes full of apples and broccoli and celery and pineapple and all sorts of delicious fruits and vegetables. Now the chef, he was so happy. He thanked everyone again and again. He took all these fruits and vegetables, he brought them inside his house, and he set them down in his kitchen. But as he started looking at all the fruits and vegetables, he started feeling a little overwhelmed and a little bit scared. He had never in his life cooked anything that wasn't potatoes. He wasn't sure where to start, but he decided to go for it. He rolled up his sleeves and he started cooking and cooking and cooking. But the dishes he came up with, they weren't exactly stellar and delicious. He made watermelon soup and tomato cake and cucumber pie and boiled celery. Now, none of that looked too good to him, but he decided to sit down and have a taste. And as he put the first food in his mouth, this was terrible. He didn't know what to do with any of this. He was still out of potatoes, and he was sure he was never going to eat anything delicious in his life ever again. So he started crying and pacing in his house again and again. And outside, the villagers, they heard the poor chef, and nobody knew what to do with him, until a little boy stepped out of the crowd and said, I know exactly what to do. The next morning, the chef heard a knock at his door. He answered, and he saw the little boy standing there saying, "Good morning, chef. I have something that I think is going to solve your problems." And he reached into his satchel and he pulled out a book. The chef said, "How is a book supposed to help me?" And the boy said, "But chef, it's a cookbook. Haven't you ever used a cookbook before?" The chef brought the little boy into his house and brought him into his library. He pulled a book from the shelf and said, "Well, this is the only cookbook I have ever used." And he showed him the title, How to Cook Potatoes. Now the little boy started to laugh, and he took a look over in the kitchen where all of the chef's disastrous dishes were sitting, and he started to laugh and said, "Chef, this book is going to teach you how to cook with all of these things and how to make really delicious things too." The chef picked up the book and read the title, How to Cook Fruits and Vegetables Except for Potatoes. That's really interesting. So the chef got to work again. He pulled up his sleeves, he started dicing and slicing and sauteing and grilling, and this time he came up with delicious dishes. He made tomato soup, nice steamed carrots, strawberry pancakes, and apple pie, and this was just the beginning. He was so happy to have discovered all these fruits and vegetables. He took all the seeds from all of them and planted his own garden. And to thank the entire village for introducing him to all these new foods, he invited everybody over for a grand feast. Everybody was there. Everybody was so happy to taste the chef's new creations. But as the evening went on, something terrible happened. The chef ran out of something. He ran out of chairs. Now that's a tasty main course. Now at the end of a meal, we need a good dessert, right? And what better dessert than a little bit of ice cream? Now, let me start at the beginning. See, I know this dragon. His name is Marty. He is a really, really cool dragon. He's got big wings, big claws, big teeth, big, beautiful scales, and there's something else about dragons that I'm forgetting. Dragons, they breathe fire. They breathe fire. I forgot that. Dragons breathe fire. And Marty the dragon, well, he was really, really proud of his fire. It's great for all kinds of things, right? You can start your campfires when you're camping. You can toast your marshmallows. You can boil your tea and warm up your soup. It's wonderful. Now, dragons, I don't know if you knew this, but dragons also love parties. It's true. And this happened to be Marty's birthday party. So you can imagine it was a crazy bash. All his friends were there. There was all kinds of things to eat. There was pizza, there was sandwiches, there was chocolate cake, and of course there was ice cream. All the flavors of the rainbow. Now Marty, he was getting into it. He was partying, and he decided to have himself a bowl of triple Chunky Monkey chocolate ice cream. And it was so good, he decided to have a second bowl of triple Chunky Monkey chocolate ice cream. And then he had a third bowl of triple Chunky Monkey ice cream. His belly was full, and he opened his mouth to roar a big, big fire to say thank you to all his friends. But as he opened his mouth wide, do you know what happened? Nothing came out. You know when you eat ice cream and you get like a brain freeze right there, it gets you? Well, for dragons, it's a little bit different. They get throat freeze. It gets them right here, and they lose their fire. So Marty, well, he started to panic, of course. He was saying, my fire's gone forever. I can't be a dragon without a fire. And this had to happen on my birthday too. This is the worst thing. So Marty started crying and crying and crying, and all his friends who were there, well, they said, we should think of something to try to help him. We just need to find something for him to eat that's going to give him his fire back. everybody scattered. They went to their homes, they went to their pantries, they went to restaurants, they went to grocery stores, they went everywhere, and they came back with all kinds of food for Marty to try to eat. They gave him hot chicken noodle soup. It didn't work. They gave him a whole pile of hot dogs swimming in mustard. It didn't work. They brought him spaghetti with meatballs. They brought him pineapple upside down cake. They brought him Kraft Dinner. Nothing was working. They even brought him potatoes from the story from before, but none of that worked either. There was no fire for Marty. That's it. He was done. He sat down. He cried. He said, "That's it. This is my life. I'm not a dragon anymore." And then he heard a little tiny voice saying, "I think I might have an idea." Marty looked around, he looked up, he looked down finally, and he saw a little tiny mouse. Her name was Iris. Now Iris, she was holding something very, very tiny in her little paws, and she was holding it up to Marty. And Marty said, "Iris, whatever you've got, it is too tiny. I need something big to bring me my fire back. What do you call that thing anyway?" And Iris, who was still handing him the little piece of food, said, "This is called a habanero pepper. Now be careful, it's very spicy." Now Marty wasn't afraid. He took the pepper in his big claws and he turned it this way and that and he smelled it. And he tossed it into his mouth. And he started to chew. And he started to chew. And then he started to, then his eyes got big, and steam started pouring out of his ears, and his face turned pink and purple and blue and green and back to red again, and steam poured all the way around, and then Marty opened his jaws wide and said, This is the hottest thing I've ever had in my mouth." And do you know what happened next? Fire, like you wouldn't believe, came right out of Marty's mouth. His fire was back. And Iris, well, I told you it would work. Now, since that day, Marty is very, very careful about eating his ice cream. And Iris the mouse, well, they're best friends now. And she gets to fly on his back anytime she wants. Thank you for sharing my little tasty nibbles with me.